All right, lesson 6.6. This is video number 2. We're actually going to be completing 2 objectives today. The first objective is we're going to be solving equations with fractional exponents and solving radical equations with extraneous solutions. Now, an extraneous solution, if you remember from the preview in the material on Angel, an extraneous solution is just a problem that after you've actually solved the equation, it actually comes out to be a correct and true answer. The problem with it is when you plug it back in, it unfortunately can't work. So we're going to review some of those. So before we go ahead and get started, let's go ahead and take a look at example number 1. And example number 1 is x minus 4 x minus 4 equals the square root of 2x. Now, anytime we want to solve this thing, the very first thing that we need to do is we need to make sure and get rid of this radical sign before we can do anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to square this side, and I got to square this side. Okay. Now on the left side of the equation, if you remember, this ends up being a perfect square trinomial. So you can either go x minus 4 times x minus 4 and FOIL the problem out, or you can use your shortcut. X squared gives you x squared. The middle term is x times negative 4, which gives you negative 4x, times 2, which is going to give us negative 8x. Negative 4 squared is going to give us plus 16. Equals, remember the radical and the square root cancel each other out, and I get 2x. Okay. Now, in order to solve a trinomial, if you'll remember, since I have an x squared term and an x, the first and the best option is, can I factor it? And especially since this is a 1 in front of the x squared, a lot of times those will end up the best. So x squared gives me minus 10x plus 16 equals 0. Okay. So now I just need to look for factors of positive 16. That would be negative 10. So if I do negative 16, I get negative 1, actually positive 1, and negative 16. Okay. Those don't add up to be 10. Negative 2, positive 8. Oh, I need a positive 16 here. My fault. Okay. And if you look, negative 8 times negative 2 gives me a negative 10. When I multiply it, I get negative 16. So this solution is x minus 2, x minus 8 equals 0. So I take x minus 2 equals 0, and x minus 8 equals 0. So add 2 to both sides. So x could be 2, or add 8 to both sides, and x could equal 8. Okay? So when I'm solving these, I actually have to plug these back in and see if they work. So let's do the 8 first. So I'm going to plug it back in the original, so I get 8 minus 4 equals the square root of 2 times 8. Well, 8 minus 4 gives me 4, gives me the square root of 16, and yeah, 4 equals square root of 16 is 4. So 8 is a possible answer. Okay? So when I do 2, I'm going to take 2 minus 4 equals square root of 2 times 2. Well, 2 minus 4 gives me a negative 2. Gives me the square root of 4. Well, this is actually, oops. The square root of 4 is 2. And so that is not a possible solution. Those two don't equal. So the only answer in this case would be 8. Okay? All right. A quick review before we get to the fractional exponents. If you remember, when we were actually solving the equation 2/3 x equals 8, in order to solve this, we actually need to multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply this by 3 over 2. And if we do that, we got to multiply this side by 3 over 2. So actually what happens is the 3's cancel, the 2's cancel, and that gets me my x all by myself. Okay? And then on this one, put this over 1. This goes to 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. So 4 times 3 gives me 24. Another way to look at it would be 3 times 4 is 12. If we did the 8 times 3, we would get 24 divided by 2. X is 12. Okay? All right. So let's take a look at one of the equations where we actually have a fractional exponent. So, but the first thing that you have to ask is, just like we had regular exponents, the very first thing we have to take care of is we have to say, now wait a minute, what is, what's being raised to the 3 over 2 power? And the only thing being raised to the 3 over 2 power would be the x. If both of them were, then they would be in parentheses. So let's go ahead and take care of this 2 so we can get the item that's raised to our power all by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and I end up with 125. Okay? And the way that you get rid of fractional exponents, just like we did when we were solving the previous one, because I need to get this so I have just an exponent of 1. Well, anytime I want to get it to the exponent of 1, I just multiply by its reciprocal. So 3 over 2 raised to the 2/3 power, everything cancels out, and I get my 1. But I have to raise this side to the 3 over 2 power. I'm sorry, the 2/3 power. Okay? So remember, all this means is that I'm looking for, the bottom number is my index, so I'm looking for the cube root of 125 squared. Okay? So the cube root of 125, if you look on your list, go down the third column, go to 125, and you find out that the root of 120, or the third root of 125 is 5, and then we're going to square it. So this answer has 125. Okay? All right. Example number 3. Okay? Why don't you go ahead and pause the video. Let's go ahead and make this one a you try, and see how, if the answer you get is what we're going to do. So go ahead and pause the video. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. First question, remember to ask, is what's being raised to the 4/3 power? And the only thing being raised to the 4/3 power is the x. There's no parentheses. So we're going to divide by 3 to go ahead and get rid of that. So we have only the item that's being raised to the 4/3 power. And 243 divided by 3 is going to give me 81. And remember, now I just have to get rid of the power. So I flip this, becomes 3/4, and I raise this side to the 3/4. So 4/3 to the 3/4 power cancel out. I'm left with x. And this one, remember, I want the 4th root of 81, and I'm going to raise it to the 3rd power. So the 4th root of 81 is 3, and 3 to the 30 power is 27. Okay? All right. Now, sometimes it will be where there's not just the x raised to the power. So if I look at this example, x plus 9, and then it's raised to the 5/2 power equals 32. Well, since I have parentheses, this is telling me that both of these items are being raised to the 5/2 power. So before I do anything, I got to get rid of this power. So I'm going to raise this side to the 2/5 power, and I raise this side to the 2/5 power. So those cancel out, and I get x plus 9 equals, and here, remember, this is the 5th root of 32, and is raised to the 2nd power. So the 5th root of 32 is 2. 2 squared gives me 4. And then minus 9. So those cancel, and I get x equals 9 minus 4 gives me 5. Okay? Okay. Now, all right, so the next example, example number 4. Okay, this is the last and final example. First question, just like always, ask what is being raised to the 3/4 power. And since there's parentheses, the x minus 8 is being raised to the 3/4 power. So before we start, remember, we've got to get rid of the 5. So the 5s will cancel. Divide by 5. So I get x minus 8 raised to the 3/4 power equals 40 divided by 5 gives me 8. Now, next step is to make sure you get rid of your powers. So I'm going to flip it and raise this side to the 4/3 power. So my powers cancel out. X minus 8 equals, And then I want the cube root of 8, because remember the bottom number of the fractional exponent goes inside, and I'm raising it to the 4/3 power. So third root of 8 is 2 to the 4th power. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 more is 8, times 2 more gives me 16. Okay? And then add 8 to both sides, and I get x equals 24 as my final answer. Okay?